Hey, what's up people? It's TTC. Back again with another delivery from eBay. This is definitely a really cool one. Might have been a bit of a spur of the moment impulse purchase, but I am very excited about this. It's something that I've been contemplating for quite a while now, so I'm happy that I finally went through with it and snapped this guy up. So let's stop wasting time and get this thing open. And there we have it, the Marvel Legends Daredevil from the Mindless One Build-A-Figure wave. Now, I think probably a fair amount of people started watching Born Again when it come on Disney Plus this week. And because there was only 2 episodes at the time, I decided to go back and rewatch some of the Netflix series. I'm really glad that it's on Disney Plus because I'd seen it before in the past. I don't remember liking it that much, I thought it was alright. But I've actually really enjoyed going back and having a rewatch of it this time around. I'd say, after about 10 episodes into Series 1, I thought, yep, I definitely need to get myself a Daredevil, so I jumped straight on eBay. At some point in the last few years, this character became really popular. You try looking for him online and you'll see all the prices shot way up. I will always try and find anything I buy for around the 20-30 quid mark, so 60 to 100 just way too much for me. I was expecting it. Most of those prices are for his classic just red costume. Lucky for me, I was actually trying to find the Shadowland suit. You know, where the figure's sort of just in the black suit with the red wraps around his hands and the big red combat boots. However, after doing a bit of searching, the only one that I could find for a decent price had a really big chunk of paint missing out the nose. Ah, tiny little thing, but just irritating. Couldn't do it. So for me, this was definitely the next best bet. And to be honest, I don't regret it. I actually think this is a really cool look for him too. From what I've seen online, it's a half decent figure, and from looking at it right here in front of me, yep, I'm definitely quite excited to get this open. Now, I've never actually read the comic story that this comes from. I've heard enough about it, so I get the general gist of it. To me though, it's just a visual thing. This just looks really cool. Now, the seller was nice enough to mention in his listing this giant crease running across the top of the box. Obviously a big deal if you're a mint on card collector, but for me, could not care less, because I'm just going to do this. Alright, here he is all opened up, and yeah, I actually really like this. It looks cool as f***. The ninja sort of design element just mixed with how he would normally look. Those wraps around the wrists. That mask as well, that looks really cool like that. And I actually really like the beard and the long ginger hair sticking out the back. Let's face it, it would probably completely give away his secret identity like that, but as a design choice, it definitely looks pretty cool. Speaking of the hair and the beard, let's have a look at this face sculpt. Because from a distance it looked good, but getting even closer up like this, look at that. I really like the way they've done that. I know a lot of people have said about that new Disney Plus Daredevil that's coming out that the eyes just look too wide, and I think I know exactly what the problem is. The frown on this one, that's what it needs. Look at that. It looks proper aggressive, but it also casts just the right amount of shadow down over the face. Looks really dynamic. The mouth, however, the beard looks fine enough, but look at that bottom lip. They've done quite a soft, I dare say lazy sculpt to that. Sort of looks like it's just been smushed on there and then, I don't know, it kind of looks melted. It's not the end of the world, but they definitely could have done a better job than that, let's face it. I'm looking at him head to toe, and I really like the torso of this costume. It's really cool the way it just looks like the sort of a armoured overlay over the top of his little ninja costume. And those double D's on his chest are printed really clean. The red wraps on his arms look nice, but not sure about there where it meets the elbow. Obviously you don't want to put the red paint on the elbow, because as soon as you move it, that's just going to scrape right off. However, maybe just move the wraps down, maybe just like a centimetre. That might not be slightly accurate, but let's face it, that's a tiny little thing, and it would have just made it tons better in my opinion. And then his big baggy ninja pants are really nicely done, you know, looks like flowing fabric, that's cool. And I like the wraps going all the way down his calves onto his feet. There's a nice Daredevil arse. He's got a nice bright red belt, and then this ridiculously long pouch on his side for his sticks. Obviously it's got to accommodate the sticks, so that makes sense, but surely there's a way of making it just slightly smaller. Surely something that big would just be flapping around and getting in the way. And since we had a look at the pouch, we might as well see what's in it. It comes with these two little red... I always want to call them a screamer sticks, but now that's Nightwing, isn't it? But the more little buttons. I don't want to say billy club, because I'm pretty sure that is what it's called when it's got the long string in the middle connecting the two pieces. Maybe I'm wrong. Who cares what it's called? Point being, here it is. It's nice and basic, but it looks pretty good. And it connects together in the middle to make the longer version of it. What more do you want? At least it's not super bendy and flexible like some of the older versions have been. And he definitely holds it in his hands pretty nicely. It's tight enough, it's not going to fall out. Look at that. That looks cool like that. That's definitely Daredevil. And they're not going to fall out either. And then there's a second weapon, which is like a long stick with these two blades on the end. I don't have a clue what this is called, but it looks cool. I don't know if it's actually supposed to be his other weapon, just with these sort of attachments on the end. Kind of thought that, because it's got this little break in the middle like it connects. Maybe it's not related at all. Maybe it's just another one that you can split in two. But either way, really nicely done. I like the silver paint on the blades at the end. They don't always do that. Sometimes it's just on a sort of a shiny grey plastic. So having it like this definitely looks a lot better in my opinion. I really like that. And there you go, it holds up really well too. That looks cool and it's not going to fall out. No, I'm not really one for going over articulation in videos. It just doesn't really interest me. But there are 2 points that I feel like it's worth mentioning here. First of all, obviously with that beard and that weird sort of neckerchief thing around his neck, the articulation is pretty hindered. Like left and right, totally fine. But he's not going to look down very far at all. And I dare say he doesn't look up whatsoever. Not really sure how they would have fixed it other than making that neckerchief thing have a bit more of a deeper gap in it, I suppose, so that he could fit his beard down into it. But then he still wouldn't be able to tilt upwards that far, unfortunately. But, right, then I just had a random epiphany. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here. But let's remember, he's blind. Like, why would a blind guy need to tilt his head upwards to look? He's not looking at anything. Like, if you're blind, or you know someone who's blind, and that's totally wrong, then fair enough, my bad. But, it just makes sense to me. It makes me feel better about the lack of articulation, at least. And the second point is the way they did the double jointed knee on these big baggy pants. Now, obviously, they are big and baggy, so no matter how they went about this, they probably would have done it wrong anyway. But if you bend it just single like this, don't look too bad. But obviously that's not the point of a double knee, so if you bend the whole thing, you get a really strong range of articulation. Not exactly very realistic, but it works. But the problem is, it leaves this giant gap, like a big piece missing out the front of his leg. And then just this tiny little kneecap just sat there on the front. Looks pretty ugly. Like for example, here's the Black Series Ahsoka, which is made by the same company, so they should have access to the same designs and technology. And the way they did in her big baggy pants that tuck into her boots is just a single knee, which obviously you're going to get less range of articulation, but that looks so much better in my opinion. Still not quite perfect, but I'd rather have just that little bit of fabric hanging over the front than a whole chunk missing out of the knee. I'm not sure which one really is better. It's probably just personal preference, but for me, if they'd done it the same way they did Ahsoka's, then yeah, that probably would have been better in my opinion. And while she's here, we might as well knock out a few size comparisons. So this is the Black Series version from Book of Boba Fett or Mandalorian, or even her own show. Who knows? They re-released this so many goddamn times that I honestly can't remember which version of it is. In here he is next to the Marvel Legends Deadpool. And whacking these two together like this, you can really see just how dark and dull the red is on Deadpool. Quite a difference really compared to each other. And then for a brighter red comparison is the X-Men 97 Nightcrawler. Now this is a really cool figure. Now if I'm going to just be a bit nitpicky, I probably would have preferred the red on Daredevil to be closer to this red, as his is more sort of leaning towards pink, whereas Nightcrawler's is slightly more orange. And then last is the Dragon Stars Super Saiyan Vegeta figure. And let's face it, it just shows that Marvel Legends have always been 6-inch-ish. Just slightly bigger than the rest. And I just noticed that for some reason, he's got trigger fingers sculpted into both of his hands. Don't really know why Daredevil would be holding guns, or if he even does use them in this storyline, but there you go if you're curious. This is what he would look like holding both of Deadpool's pistols. So yeah, I'm glad I went with this version in the end. It's a really interesting and cool design. I'll be honest, sometimes I get slightly bored of classic costumes. I've seen them a bajillion times. So something like this, just new and refreshing, yeah, it's pretty cool, isn't it? It's just got me tempted to go looking for a Punisher figure now to go with it. And I know for a fact that's another one that has shot right up in price. I'm kind of holding my breath hoping that they release a new one in a more sort of tactical gear. I prefer that look for Punisher over his little black morph suit and the white gloves. Fingers crossed at some point they release a new one. So don't forget to like this video, drop us a comment down below letting us know what you think of this guy, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. There'll be plenty more Marvel Legends videos coming. But until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers!